Hey, good morning to those of you out there on the West Coast. Good afternoon to those of you here on the East Coast with me. It's a beautiful day out there, which always puts me in a really good mood. I'm going to get rocking and rolling here as soon as I turn off some of these scrolling bars that I have on here. It's early chit chat. Hi, Pamela. Thanks for always showing up, and I appreciate you coming early and on time. When people do that, it actually helps LinkedIn put the word out to other people. Do me a favor, make sure when you guys come in that you take the time to put your company name in here and then 2-3 words about what you do. In fact, today's training is going to be about that and driving it home. But part of the reason I want to reinforce that time after time after time, if you come to many of my trainings, is because so many thousands of people will come back and watch the training and look at the comments, et cetera, and can engage with you and say, hey, can we touch base? So go ahead and do that while I'm getting us started on today's training, focused on your core competency and understanding what you sell. And this is really important because inside the federal government, there's a pretty standard question you'll get from teammates, from customers, federal buyers, et cetera. They're going to ask that question when they meet you. What do you do? I was just at the Army big conference, AUSA 2025 in Washington, D.C., earlier this week. And when you meet somebody, they're like, well, what do you do? What's your company do? And if you don't have an answer to that, right? If you don't have a really clear answer to that, then you're not ready for federal sales. In the federal market, you're going to get this question. And so you need to not only be able to answer it, I do this, but also you need to answer it in a way that they can kind of repeat it back to you. And so that's really important, right? It's when I talk about chat and putting a couple of key words in there. I'm looking at maybe Charles. We innovate mission critical AI-driven systems, right? And so that's a good start. I would begin to look in there and try to figure out, well, like for DoD or something. Just picking on Charles a teeny bit, but shout out to Atlanta. It's really important. Like when you have that answer to what you sell, it makes it so much easier as you start down this path of getting known, liked, and trust. People will only buy from those they know, like, and trust. And, starting with getting to know you, that's going to events or reaching out and making cold calls, et cetera. But they begin to like and trust you when they begin to feel like they understand what you do. And if they can't understand what you sell, what your company does, then how can they really build any trust in there, right? They might like you personally, but they're not liking your company. And this is not in a negative way, like they dislike you. I used to talk about that. There's I like the person, I don't like the person, and I dislike it. And people often confuse don't like and dislike. I can't dislike you if I don't know you. And same thing with your company, right? I can't dislike you. The federal buyers can't dislike you or see your company as not a fit for them if they can't even really understand what you're doing. And so we're going to be really diving into this idea of understanding what you do. And I think I'll talk about this a little later, but I call it typecasting for actors. If you think about Dwayne Johnson, he used to be called Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, and he does action movies. Or Matthew McConaughey, he got really well known for rom-com, romance comedies. And these guys, these actors, would get typecast in particular roles. And what that meant was they just kept getting invited back to do roles. I was listening to Matthew McConaughey talk about when he made the transition where he's like, I'm not doing rom-coms anymore. I want to expand as an actor. I want to do more. But they just kept giving him those things. And for an actor, that's kind of tough because he wants to expand his roles and show he can do more. But they kept coming back. Hey, how about if we give you $5 million? How about if we give you $10 million? How about if we give you $15 million to do it? And, and he began to waver to go back to rom-coms. Well, the difference between Matthew McConaughey and actors and us as businesses is we'll do rom-coms all day long. If you come back to me and say, hey, I want you to do a SharePoint piece of work, I'll give you $1 million. Okay, I'll give you $10 million. Okay, I will keep doing it until you decide you're not going to give me more. And eventually I can start expanding. But in the beginning, we need to be typecast. We need to be understood for what we do. And that's what I'm going to be talking about today as it relates to your core competency, what you sell. So if you follow all that, just put core competency in the chat. If you're really energetic, put core competencies rock in the chat. Let LinkedIn tell other people that this is what we're talking about today. I'm going to break up the training into 3 sections. First, I just want to level set around the term core competency. What do we mean by that? There's 2 things that I deal with. One are people who are newer to the federal market who maybe aren't even familiar with the term core competency. And the other group, which is really important to me, are those of us who've been in a while, but maybe we don't understand what core competency means. I equate it to prioritization. I'm like, okay, what's your number one priority? Wow, there's so many. I'm like, no. There's one thing that's a number one priority, and you need to figure that out, right? And for me, I have my family in my house. I know what my priority is. If there's a fire, I know what I'm taking out at each time, and I know the pecking order, right? My wife knows she's behind the kids. I'm like, look, if I still got energy, I'll come back for you, but I'm coming for the kids, right? And then I'm coming, and frankly, I could care less about anything else in my house except for family, but you get my point, right? That's prioritization. And sometimes it's tough. Well, in business, we need to do the same thing. So that's why I want to talk about core competency. And then I really want to drive that, reinforce that through the federal buyers and teammates that are out there on why it's important to teammates and federal buyers that you specialize. You need to understand it in order to then begin to do it and feel comfortable really diving into your core competency. And the last thing I'll talk about is why a lack of core competency is preventing us from success. Maybe if you see the reasons why it's preventing you from success, you'll double down on making sure your company is clearly communicating internally and externally what your core competencies are. So that's what we're going to be talking about today. If you don't know who I am, my name is Neil McDonald. I'm the president of the GovCon Chamber of Commerce. I'm founder of Call Plan AI, and I want to welcome you to my federal sales training where I provide tips for success in the federal market. I spent 20 years in the federal market after I got out of the Army as a small business owner in 2 different companies. And since 2018, I've been teaching people like you that government contracting is not a secret. It's just a process. When we follow a process A to Z, we have repeatable, predictable results. This is what I want for you. This is what you can have as it relates to your core competencies and driving forward on opportunities that you want to pursue and sales you're trying to land. If you haven't connected with me on LinkedIn, connect with me and join 42,000 other people who are connected with me in the federal market. Most of these people are in the federal market. And the reason it's so great when you connect with me is my network is yours. You could literally reach out to people, go, oh, I saw you in Neil's training, or I was at AUSA, et cetera. Or you can reach out to me maybe and say, could you make an introduction? Our networks combined create millions and millions of people in our network. And that comes from when you join with me or when you join with others. Like I see Charles and Chris and Kevin in the chat. Hopefully they're all connecting with each other. It doesn't mean they're always going to work together, but it means we've expanded our network. So follow me and connect with me on LinkedIn so that we can keep building that network. If you haven't subscribed to my newsletter, Government Contracting Success Newsletter, make sure you do that. I put out a ton of good content trying to help you understand the federal market more and to have more success as a government contractor salesperson. Last thing I want to tell you about this slide is tomorrow's training is how I land first meetings. This is a tough thing for people, whether you're experienced or not. You got 20 years of experience or you're brand new. Getting a first meeting when you haven't been in a particular agency, or if you haven't been, if you don't have any relationships with an existing company, for example, getting that first meeting can be tough. And tomorrow's training, I'm going to give you my steps on how I do it. It's like a step-by-step guide for getting that first meeting. Hopefully you'll come join me. Okay, so let's get rocking and rolling. Let's start by understanding what a core competency is. And I want to begin with what's the difference between a competency and a core competency. And I thought I'll use 2 examples that are outside the businesses I've had because they're a little specialized. But one example is in a hospital. I really learned this term when I was helping VA hospital. So the Department of Veterans Affairs was a customer of mine for decades. And so had a lot of business with them at the hospital level. And inside the hospital, they have, let's say 2,000 or 3,000 people who work in the hospital. All of them have a specialty. This is called a core competency. And each of them have a specialty, and all of them have a set of competencies. And so an example of a competency is if I see a spillage in the hallway, every single one of us knows what to do, and we all do the exact same thing. We pick up the phone that's nearest, we call, like, let's say facility or something. We got something here, we don't know what it is. It might be blood, it might be a Coca-Cola, it doesn't matter. There's a spillage in the hospital, everybody stops and addresses that. That's a common competency that's out there. So think about that's a general competency. Then you have a specialty, a core competency. And inside of a hospital, you could think about an IV, right? Everybody in a hospital who's on the medical side, maybe not the administrative side, can give an IV. But certain people, and usually it's these nurses, the men and women who deal with it on a regular basis, it's their core competency. They could do it blindfolded. They can go in. Yes, a lot of these doctors or somebody could give an IV, but you'll feel in tough shape because they don't do it that often. It's not their core competency. And I don't need to buy from them getting my blood drawn. I need to buy surgery because that's what they do. And so that kind of idea. When I was in the Army, I was in a unit called the Rangers, and I was a machine gunner there. My core competency was the machine gun. I knew everything about it, the lane of fires, et cetera. I knew what to do for covering fire. I knew everything around the machine gun. They also taught me about a Stinger missile that could take down airplanes. That was a competency of mine, but it was nowhere near a core competency. They also taught me how to draw blood and how to put IVs in. That was a competency of mine, but you really don't want to be paying me for that because I'm going to be jabbing you. I mean, I'll eventually get it. You want to pay me for the machine gun stuff. And it's the same thing for you. You need to think to yourself, what are we best at? What am I best at if I'm newer to the company or my company? What are we best at? That is our core competency. Not all the things we wish we would be good at, right? It's the thing we're best at. My two companies, the first one, I was best at network engineering. So our whole company's core competency was around that. Second company, I was excellent at Microsoft SharePoint. Our whole company was around that. What is your core competency? Like, could you say it in one word or two words, right? And another way to be able to begin to identify what your core competency is, what are you being paid for? So if you've been in business and you got $3, $4, $5 million, you should be able to look at that and go, we get paid for this. That's our core competency. 80% of our work comes from here. That's our core competency. Just because you want to move into cybersecurity doesn't make that your core competency. It makes it an expansion area, and that's totally okay, but it's not your core competency. Your core competency is what you've been paid for. And hopefully your core competency is something that if you got more and more and more contracts, you would be able to expand into the tens of millions of dollar revenue each year. So think about, what are you actually best at and what have you been paid for? A quick sidebar, if you are brand new and you have no past performance as a company, et cetera, just think to yourself, what was my last job? What was I getting paid for? In both my companies, I was being paid as a network engineer. I was W-2'd, and then I took the customer, and you can hear about this on a podcast I just did a minute ago. But I was W-2'd as a network engineer. I became a company that did network engineering. I was 1099 doing SharePoint for commercial companies, just formed it into a company and became a government contractor with Microsoft SharePoint. So you can take what was your job, and that's now your company's core competency. Even if your company hasn't been paid for that work and you just started your business, you still have a core competency. Okay, so a couple other things about core competency that I want you to understand, and kind of why to narrow down on that is there's a line that says the riches are in the niches. And what this really means is that if you come down, instead of saying, I do all things construction, instead you say, we're the best at linoleum flooring or tile flooring or something like that. That's niching down, where you come down to the smallest possible thing. And if you're under $5 million, you want to be coming down and saying, we're the best at flooring. Or in cybersecurity, right? We're the best at risk management framework. Whatever it is in your world, you want to come down and niche down, narrow down on your specialty. And when you narrow down, that's when you get, and the idea of riches are in the niches, that's when you start winning more and more contracts, because every contract you do around your niche, your specialty, your core competency, every contract around that builds on each other, and you're able to get a bigger and a bigger and a bigger contract. The other thing that you want to pay attention to is specialization, like in that core competency. That helps you build relationship or reputation for what you do. We were known as the SharePoint guys in my last company. And so that reputation drove more and more opportunities. We would literally have $5 million opportunities just thrown in our laps because somebody knew what we did. And they're like, oh no, you got to work with them. They're the best at SharePoint. And we were. So we marketed. Okay, so think about what your core competency is, and I'd love to see you putting it in there and letting me know. Okay, so now let's talk about why buyers and teammates really need you to specialize. You need to understand this as it relates to core competencies and your success in the federal market. Federal buyers and teammates, they need you to specialize. And here are just 4 reasons on why. First off, when you think about a teammate who's got a big contract and they've got a hole, or you think about a federal buyer, they're all trying to solve a problem or achieve a goal. In federal sales, we always talk about trying to find the customer's pain points or their objectives. And so their pain points are like challenges, problems they have, et cetera. And objectives or goals are future looking. So these are the things I want or I'm needing. And what they want to know is if they've got a problem they're trying to solve or a goal they're trying to achieve, have you helped somebody else solve that problem? Have you helped somebody else achieve that goal? This is the measurement that's out there. I'm going to be doing a lot of stuff on win themes. And I heard somebody say today that, really win themes are unnecessary. And I disagree, and we'll talk about that later. But their point around that was really good. It was more about, do you understand the need and can you solve the need with past performance? Can you demonstrate you can do it? And what they were saying there was spot on. It's the same thing here. If a federal buyer or a teammate has a need, they not only want to know that you're confident that you can fill the need, but that you've been paid for that before. The second way of looking at this on why especially teammates would need you to come in. So if you're thinking about subcontracting under another company that's prime contracting, they need you to be a piece of the puzzle, not the whole puzzle. If I'm going to go work with company ABC or Booz Allen or somebody, they've got the whole big picture going. They don't need me to come in and say, hey, I could do the whole puzzle. I could be all the pieces in the puzzle. That's not what they're looking for. They're looking for somebody who can fill this one piece that's missing, right? Can you fill that piece? And if you can fill that piece, then you're good to go. When you have a core competency and they're looking at that puzzle image, and the only thing that's missing is, let's say, a car on some sort of image, and there's a car piece missing. If you come in and you go, by the way, I'm a puzzle piece that does a car, and you put that in, it's obvious to everybody you fit and you can help them complete the picture. So remember, as your core competency, and when you're narrowing down, we're looking for you to be a piece of the puzzle, not a whole puzzle itself. Another reason why they need you to specialize, federal buyers and teammates, is that we're looking for you to, when they're giving you this kind of work, it's a really interesting statement, giving you this work. I was watching this movie with my sons. It's an old John Wayne movie called McClintock, something like that. Anyways, in there, this guy was trying to get a job with him, and he goes, I don't need you giving me a job. It's like, I'm not giving you anything. Are you going to work a hard day's work for me? Yes. Well, I'm going to give you a fair day's wage for that fair day's work. And here it's the same thing when you're especially thinking about working with a teammate, but when you're filling a need that the government has or that these teammates have, they're not doing you favors by bringing you on the team. You're coming in and bringing in expertise. You're filling that puzzle piece or bringing that puzzle piece to complete the puzzle. And you're not, they're not doing favors. They're going to pay you for that. And so the idea is no one's going to give you work because they're nice. Oh, you're a woman-owned small business. Oh, you're a veteran-owned small business. Let me give you work. That's not why I'm giving you work as a federal buyer. That's not why I give you work as a teammate. I give you work because you help me finish the puzzle. You mitigate the risk by being able to do the work. You can fill the need, or you can help me achieve a goal, especially when you think about AI now. There's all sorts of future goals that no one really knows what to do. If you can bring this expertise in, that's really going to help them. And then the last thing here is, and this is a big one with small businesses, whenever a large talks about, and you hear them maybe complaining or somebody's talking about how, man, the smalls out there are, they're unreliable or maybe they don't fill the work. Just because they're talking that way doesn't mean it's not true. And I know this sounds a little weird, right? But yes, small businesses are incredibly valuable to federal buyers and to teammates. But sometimes large primes in particular have been screwed by small businesses. We get a subcontract with them, and then the first thing we do is go, hey, can you help us fill the position? It's like, what are you talking about? Like, that's your job. And by the way, don't worry, I can knock small or large in equal ways, right? All of us have our challenges. But at the moment, I'm talking about when you're trying to go to a teammate, a big thing they're looking for is that you can do the job independently. So if they bring you on to a contract and you're going to do a piece of the work, they need to know not only will you do that work independently, but you'll make them and the whole contract look great to the customer. You will be part of the puzzle, not an independent puzzle all on your own as part of their contract. And so they want to have confidence that you can do that job without supervision. One of the ways that you can give them confidence is to show them that this is your core competency. This is your area of specialization. We have been paid for this numerous times before. And again, if you're brand new, just go team up with a company doing $1 million or less, and they will help you begin to build that past performance without requiring as much from you. So hopefully this makes sense, right? Why they need you to specialize, because you're filling a need that they have, and they want to know that you will fill that in a way that delivers success. Hey, I wanted to take a minute and just thank Voltron for being the sponsor of our LinkedIn Lives. We're putting out these lives pretty much every single day, except for yesterday when I had something come up with the internet. But we're putting these out every single day for your benefit. And Voltron has joined me in sponsoring us and making sure we're able to provide this every day at noon for you. So check out Voltron. Say thank you to Voltron in the chat. It's really important if you're writing proposals out there, you clearly are evaluating how AI is going to be fitting in. And with Voltron, it's not just about an AI tool, but they're here to help you write more winning proposals, right? Take a solicitation and make it, turn it into a clear, compliant, compelling, and convincing proposal within a matter of minutes, not weeks, And so it's this idea of being able to do more with less and do it right is something Voltron can really help you out. So check them out. Thank them at the very least, because I appreciate them. Okay, this last slide here, what I want to talk about is why a lack of a core competency, why your company not really being able to articulate the answer to what do we do, right, with a core competency is going to prevent your success. It's really important to understand this. Things we do can prevent our success out there. A really simple example is if I do these live events, but then I don't, put them up on a podcast or something, well, then no one's really going to know me beyond the initial audience I have. But if I do certain things, I can begin to get better. But I also, if I keep my message around federal sales, which is my area of expertise, I begin to get known for that. That's my core competency. You too, though, you need to be tracking on this. And if you don't have the core competencies, they really begin to impact you negatively. There's a line out there that says, if you chase 2 rabbits, you're not eating dinner tonight. And that's what I mean by this first bullet here is when you sell anything, you're going to chase anything. And when you chase anything, you're not going to eat. You're not going to win contracts. Think about this right now. There are small businesses, and you might be one of them, that go in and say, we sell cloud, cyber, and data. We do software development and help desk and all these things. These are many, many different things. You might sit there and say, oh, my core competency is information technology or IT, but that's not tight enough, right? And the problem is when you have that, you start chasing opportunities that are in all these different areas. And when you do, you can't specialize not only in the work that you do, but in the content that you write, in the way you talk to a teaming partner or a federal buyer. None of that is consistent. You're bouncing around because you don't have a single message. But if all you talk about is, linoleum flooring, like I talked about, or all you talk about is SharePoint development, every single time you talk about it, you're going to get better at the message that you're delivering. Every time you look for opportunities or communicate to people what opportunities you're looking for, it's going to become more and more clear how people like me and others can help you find the opportunities that work. But you can't do that when you're chasing everything. And chasing everything is saying you do everything. If buyers can't slot you in, going back to that last slide, right? If they can't slot you in to fitting a need or achieving a goal, then you're never going to make the short list. If I've got a federal buyer and they say, I'm looking for cybersecurity, and they let's say they want 10 or 20 companies to come in and talk to them and discuss cybersecurity needs. But when they look at your marketing material, DSBS or your website capability statement, and they look in there and not only does it say cybersecurity, but it says all these other things, they go, well, that's not their specialty. That's just something they do. And they'll move on. Two bad things about that. That could be your core competency, but you're crowding it with all these other words. Or worse, you haven't narrowed down on a core competency. And so no one knows where you'll fit. They don't put you on a short list. They don't invite you in to have a conversation. They don't talk to you about an opportunity, et cetera. Another reason why a lack of core competency is going to lead to negative success or no success is that you're not going to get great at anything. I was alluding to this a minute ago on the first bullet, but Microsoft SharePoint was my specialty in my last company. When we had that specialty, all of our people, when they got trained, they were getting trained on SharePoint. That meant all of our people were able to talk to each other about SharePoint. All of our people who were working with different customers were working on SharePoint projects, and we're able to bring back those different lessons from the commercial sector, from DHS, from the Army, et cetera, and bring them all back so that we just kept getting better and better. We're like, oh, you know what we're doing over here is this kind of thing. And it enabled us to get better at our service delivery. I mentioned this a little bit ago. It gets better. We get better at writing our proposals because we just keep focusing on writing the same responses. We're going after the same opportunities, in this case, SharePoint, right? And so we're getting better and better at writing it. We're getting feedback. We're learning. We're able to interject more stories because we have more past performance. All of that builds on it as it goes forward. Continuing maybe that thread is a lack of focus prevents credibility building. And what I mean by this is because we were doing SharePoint, we began to run things like SharePoint Saturday. The government would look to us, Microsoft would look to us, engage us in these SharePoint discussions. And you can do this in any one of your companies. You can do things like that where you begin to get credibility in the industry, either in the industry with other people who are selling what you sell or selling related products, or the buyers and the teammates. You can begin to develop that credibility because your focus enables you to get invited. I was talking with Patriots data or Patriot Data Graphics, right, at OUSA yesterday, and hopefully that's the right, the screen's the right way. But I was talking to them yesterday, right? They help with graphics, in particular proposal writing graphics. Their focus in that area begins to build credibility because when you look at the graphics they're doing, they're incredibly sharp. They shape the message within a proposal that words can't just do by themselves. And so these people are developing credibility around that by focusing. And that's something you want to be able to do with your core competency. When you can focus tight, you'll start getting invited to different places. You'll become a trusted advisor. And then the last bullet here is, if you don't know this, there's 350,000 businesses at any given point that are selling to the federal government, that are registered and active to sell to the federal government. There's no way you're going to differentiate yourself if you say that you do everything, right? If you have a core competency, do you see how I just held this card up? I have a lot of information around, but this is the one I held up related to graphics in proposal writing. It's because they're memorable. You don't want to be forgettable. You want to be memorable. You want them to typecast you. Oh, they're the graphics people. These guys might be able to do more. Look, this is the third or fourth time I held up the card and they're not paying me. I can recognize where they fit in. So I want you to sit there and have the focus around your core competencies so you are memorable, not forgettable. Because like I wrote here, if you're forgettable, it's fatal. You don't want people to not think of you. In fact, it'd be better if they thought badly of you. At least they're thinking of you. Maybe that's debatable. All right, here's what I want you to remember from today's training, because it really is about answering that question, right? What do you do? So the first thing is just remember the difference between core competency and competency. Competency are all these areas you could do, and you have a lot of them perhaps. But figure out, what are you the best at that could generate $1 million or $10 million in revenue for your company over the next couple of years, right? What are you best at? That is your core competency, and it is one thing. It is not core competencies. It's your core competency. What is it? Second thing here I want you to remember is fully embrace being typecast like the actors, like Matthew McConaughey in rom-coms, right? You want people to keep throwing movies at you. Oh, I got another movie for you. Here's another $5 million. And here's another movie. Here's another contract. Here's another opportunity to participate with us, right? When you get known, when you get known for one thing, you're being typecast in business for government contracting. That is a very good thing. And the last thing, I kind of alluded to this already, is have the answer to what do you do really ready, right? And in fact, I might start asking that in this training as I go forward to say in comments. It's like, answer what do you do in the chat, right? Let me know. When you can say that in a really clear way, it makes it easy for me and everybody else to remember you. And by remembering you, we perhaps are bringing you forward towards opportunities. Hopefully you found value in the training. If you did, say thanks to Voltron. I appreciate them sponsoring it. By the way, I've got Call Plan AI. I'm building out this product and tool set to really match the training I do. So if you're looking to start and build relationships, really reinforce that, check out Call Plan AI. I'm giving 90% off right now for early subscribers because I'm working with you as I'm making it better and better. But Brett, one of our subscribers, made a really good point. I do a 1-hour Zoom call. I charge $500 an hour. Right now, if you subscribed early, you get access to me every day at 3 o'clock, basically 3 to 4, for just the price of the subscription. No one gets that. So it's a really good chance for you to come in and ask me anything around GovCon as I'm building out Call Plan AI. So I'd love to have you in there. It's early subscribers only, meaning you're willing to participate with me, give me feedback, etc. All right, just remember, government contracting, it is not a secret. It's a process. Part of the process is ending on time. I'm on time. I'm out of here.